Welcome back to Let the Quran Speak. Now we answer questions we've received from you, our viewers, and if you have a question yourself, you can visit our website, www.quranspeaks.com. Okay, Brother Shabir, this first question is about the issue of abrogating certain verses. So the person is asking, can you shed light on the issues that scholars have about abrogating certain verses of the Quran using other verses of the Quran? So you'll have to explain what abrogation is.
Yes, this emerged in Muslim juristic discussions as a way of reconciling apparently contradictory verses of the Quran when it comes to the specifics of Islamic rules. You may find a verse of the Quran seeming to indicate a positive take on a certain position, and then another verse indicating apparently the contrary. So Muslim scholars said about this that it seems that one verse was revealed at an earlier stage, and this was an instruction to be carried out for a time, and then another verse came to give the opposite instruction, canceling the first one. So you might have this like a law being repealed for good reasons, because circumstances have changed. Of course, Muslims will always maintain that God knows everything and he doesn't change his mind. He doesn't learn new things and then adjust accordingly. He knows what's going on and he knows what law he's giving, and every law is just and suitable for its circumstance.
So can you give us an example of a verse that would seem to be abrogated?
Yes, they would give it as an example.
Or two contradictory verses. Perhaps.
Yes, and sometimes they're not necessarily contradictory, but different aspects of the problem. So you might find, for example, that in the discussions they say that there is a verse which in Surah Al-Baqarah, the second chapter of the Quran, says that they ask you about drinking and gambling. Say in the two of them there is benefit and also great harm, and the harm is greater than the benefit. So God is getting you to think. They say that this verse did not say explicitly that drinking and gambling are prohibited. But then there's a later verse in the 5th chapter of the Quran, the 90th verse, which says that drinking and gambling and some other things are the handiwork of Satan, and so you should avoid this completely. Well, they say, well, now it's declared totally prohibited. So on the previous verse, it was possible for Muslims to continue drinking and gambling, though they were being, in a way, called upon to see that this is not a good thing. After they have done that for a while and they have been thinking about it and realizing for themselves it's not a good thing, now the time was ripe for God to come out and say to them in an open declaration, no more of this, and they're able to comply because they have been weaned from the time of the days of ignorance to now in their developing personalities as Muslim personalities.
So would scholars then say that the initial verse was abrogated?
This is what they will say, yeah. Okay. The initial verse no longer applies. Don't go to the initial verse and think, well, now you can still drink, but it's not a good idea. It's not such a good thing, but you can still do it. They say, no, it's not. You cannot do it. You have to follow the second verse. The last of the verses to be revealed on this subject. And it's not only on this subject, but on a wide variety of subjects. They found that this is a convenient way. Just think of the last verse, and that's the one that applies.
So these would only be for laws then, like things that Muslims would have to do or not do?
Yes, they would say that this definitely does not apply to historical information because historical information does not change. They would also say that it doesn't apply to theological issues because there is what you're going to believe. This is simple and it is the same belief system throughout. Although you may get more details later on in subsequent verses, but the belief is not going to change. You're not going to believe one day that Jesus is the Son of God and then another day that he's not the Son of God. The continuing revelation will always maintain that Jesus is the prophet and messenger of God and his Messiah, his servant, and so on. So the belief will remain consistent, though the laws can change over time.
So what's the problem with abrogation then? Is there a problem?
Yes, there is a problem. That's first. The idea that this verse came first and that other verse came second, this is not very dependable. Sometimes it so happens that if we have an apparent difference between verse A and B, some Muslim scholars will say that it's the verse A that came first, and some say it is the verse B that came first. And of course, we're interested in the latter one. And if you can't decide which is first and which is last, well, then the system doesn't really work. Second, if this was happening, you would expect that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, himself would have been recorded to have said that this is the verse that now applies. And you would see him doing this in his own way, saying that verse was revealed for a certain time, but don't follow that now, because now this is the verse to pay attention to. But nothing like this is recorded from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, himself. So this shows that that idea itself is not really a dependable idea.
I'm sorry, that's all the time we have, so we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you, Brother Shabir.
You're welcome.
For updates and additional information, please visit our website, www.quranspeaks.com. And write to us, because your comments and questions help guide the show. I'm Safiya Ali. For all of us here at Let the Quran Speak, thank you for watching. I'll see you next week.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.